All right, so my talk is not about Mackay, and you've heard about him, but really about the same thing as what this video is about, the relationship which continues, which we began with Dr. Mackay, but not about him personally, but about the relationship. So I have two halves to it, what Oxford County gave Taiwan, and what Taiwan gave Oxford County. The description of Mackay there as a person of great love, has peculiar methods of unusual closeness with the students and respect for the local culture is actually true. He was actually considered a rather eccentric missionary. And why was he eccentric? Because he went too native, and he insisted on all sorts of things which no other mission in China practiced. And Mackay responded to that. He said, which the Taiwanese people love this line, he said, but Taiwan is not China. And of course he was talking about culturally, we have our own methods that will work here. So the first thing that Oxford County gave to Taiwan through Mackay was for all those who came in contact with him, with the students, even the government officials who came to respect him and become good friends with him, which was very unusual in what was the China mission field, because remember, in the 19th century, Taiwan was part of the Chinese Qing dynasty. The first thing that Oxford County gave to him was an affirmation of the dignity and equality of the Taiwanese people with Canadians. And he really did treat his students as equals. He treated them and consciously learned from them, his cultural consultants. And for instance, people say, why are you walking around Taiwan barefoot? He says, well, the students taught him, if you wear these boots, you're going to get foot rot and so on and so on. It really isn't going to protect you from the snakes. You're better just to walk barefoot, and eventually your feet will get used to it. So he did. They became his partners in his work. They all quickly became teachers in the school. And of course, one of them became his wife, who, as it says here, became then the principal of the girls' school when it opened. And a description of what an American professor of zoology and paleontology from the University of Michigan saw in 1873 is one of my favorite quotes about Mackay. So he spent about 2 months with Mackay in Taiwan in his itinerations collecting bones and plants around Southeast Asia. And he says, I found the walls of the house he occupied hung with rough charts and maps for his teaching of geography and astronomy, and he was drilling a little band of young Chinese. During my stay with him, I was astonished at the enthusiasm and zeal that he awakened in the young men who were studying with him. And I could not help attributing this to his innate American ideals. Now, Mackay was Canadian, and Steer knew this, but American in the cultural sense, of the equality of all men before God, of universal brotherhood of mankind, and the habit growing out of this of treating all men as equal. It seemed to me that he had a much more kind and frank way of treating the Chinese with whom he was associated than had the European missionaries, who with all their belief in the value of the human soul, have had such training in the difference between the high and the low that they put too much stress that they show unconsciously in every act that they think they're dealing with an inferior race. I may have put too much stress on this, but it seems to be a subject worthy of consideration of all missionaries. And Steer is correct of these American ideals, but we look at the United States today, these ideals do not seem to be American ideals, but they were the ideals of these evangelical, Presbyterian, Highland Scots in Oxford County, the Zora pioneers. And that's the ideals that Mackay took with him. And so these first gift that Oxford County gave to Taiwan. Secondly, in his teaching, of course, Mackay was a missionary. His purpose was to bring people to recognize Jesus Christ as God's special messenger on earth, but he was teaching all other subjects, astronomy, geology, and so on, and as a way of letting the students get to know the Creator through his creation, that we can see the design and beauty of God's creation. We know the love and the design of God. However, in this process, he was doing something which was very much au courant in China at the time. After the defeats and the humiliations and extortion that resulted from the Opium Wars, people in China were looking at Western learning. They said, we have to learn these these tools of Western power, and what gives the Western their power to, they defeat a civilization like ours. And so the students were certainly becoming Christian, but they were also Chinese who were looking for Western knowledge. And so Mackay's school, the classes he taught at Oxford College, his teaching museum, were all, for them, also a broadening of their vision of the world, a window to the rest of the world from this little island of Taiwan. And it didn't just stop with his college. When he opened a new chapel and assigned a student to be in charge of that chapel, so the evangelist, in the new chapel he would place a world map, plant trees, some of which were not native to Taiwan. Oleander was one beautiful flowers, which now are all over Taiwan. And a vegetable garden with some of them were vegetables which Mackay had brought into Taiwan, including cabbage apparently and carrots, but I'm not sure about some of them, they say. Anyways. Every chapel after 1882 also got a sewing machine, so that the women in the church would be able to learn how to sew for income and making clothes for their families. But of course, a sewing machine is a lot faster than doing it by hand. And this sewing machine was a gift as a result of the eloquence of Minnie Mackay, his wife, when she was here in Canada, spoken to a large WMS gathering in Hamilton, Ontario. And one of the women there was Mrs. Wanzer. Her husband was the owner of a very large sewing machine company, Canadian company, called the Wanzer Sewing Machine Company. And she persuaded her husband to give a sewing machine to each one of Mackay's chapels. And also promised that as new chapels opened, he would send more sewing machines. So, a window on the world and Western technology at a small scale, but also in terms of concepts that these students were gaining, and Taiwan then began to gain through Mackay. The third, of course, was Mackay's medical work and the medical gift that Taiwan received from Mackay, and especially after his death with the foundation of Mackay Memorial Hospital. That was the head of the Mackay Memorial Hospital speaking at the end. And that is true that Mackay ministry made a great contribution to Taiwan's medicine, but mostly after his death with the Mackay Memorial Hospital and the third generation of missionaries. However, Mackay did give another gift to Taiwan through his medicine, and also something that was a gift from Oxford County. He had a small clinic, but Mackay was not a believer in medical missions, which were one of the great theories of Christian missions. If we have medicine, hospitals cure people, they would become Christian. Mackay did not accept this, and so he said, but we need a clinic to help rub down the prejudice against us as Westerners, and then people will maybe be willing to listen to what we have to say. So he had a small clinic in Tamsui. It was never very large, and compared to what the English Presbyterians had in Tainan and Kaohsiung, it was just very basic. The English Presbyterians already had a hospital with English doctors and staff, and so Mackay did something else, though, that the English Presbyterians didn't do. Mackay, in his way, integrated traditional Chinese medicine and the frontier medicine of Oxford County, including pulling teeth, how to set broken bones, all the things that you couldn't afford to go to Woodstock for if you were working up in Oxford, in Zora Township. And so, of course, the famous stories of pulling teeth were one of the things, but he also integrated these into a practice that his students, as evangelists, could learn and practice when they went out to these chapels, the little churches that he founded. So the Taiwanese evangelists also became a local medical practitioner in China. I guess they used to call them barefoot doctors, right? So And if it could ever be excavated, the Royal Ontario Museum inherited, through several stages, a collection of little matchboxes with Chinese medicinal herbs in them, or minerals, all the stuff of the Chinese pharmaceutical thing, and they're all labeled in Mackay's handwriting, in both Latin for the proper name and then in Chinese characters. And they eventually ended up in the storage of the Royal Ontario Museum. There is one picture, I think, in that book, the green book there, of some of these matchboxes. So Mackay did make a medical contribution, but once again, something which integrated his experience with the local knowledge too. Fourth, today, starting in the 1990s, Mackay became a national hero or a national saint of Taiwan, and this was in part due to Presbyterian President Lee Teng-hui, who was struggling to overcome the deep divide of national identity in Taiwan. There were the people who, the second and even third generation of people who came from China with Chiang Kai-shek in 1949, plus the Taiwanese people, and these were the Presbyterians. And each of them had a very different concept of what Taiwan should be and where it should become. And so Lee Teng-hui proposed this concept of the Xin Taiwanren, the new Taiwanese, that anyone who loves Taiwan and identifies with it and gives their life for it, no matter where they were born or where they come from or whether they came early or late, is a new Taiwanese, is a Taiwanese. And he held up in a speech at the Mackay Death Centenary at the National Assembly Hall up on Yangming Sun in Taiwan, holding up Mackay as the example of the new Taiwanese. So we could say that Mackay was the first Taiwanese. But now, as you see from the adulation and that you saw in this video and the endless publications of Taiwan, Taiwan truly has a national hero in George Leslie Mackay, which is why, of course, there are also the stamps and those statues of Mackay. And finally, Oxford County today has gained a special link with Canada in its sister city relationship between Oxford County and Tamsui. Even if on the Canadian side they're not particularly interested in these things, and in fact, up until this year when they got a new one up in British Columbia, I think, Oxford County was the only sister city relationship that Taiwan had in Canada between Tamsui and Oxford County. And yet, so to us, this is why does this matter? But you can see from this video how important it is to Taiwan, and it is because this part of Taiwan's soft diplomacy, the friendship, the gratitude, and the exchange both ways of people, is very important to Taiwan, especially now when non-political diplomacy and cultural power is one of Taiwan's best ways of getting around the diplomatic isolation which is imposed by the People's Republic of China on Taiwan, developing people-to-people friendship in a way which the People's Republic of China cannot develop with Canada. And so Oxford County being a sister city to Taiwan is a very important gift to Taiwan, perhaps more important than we think from our Canadian perspective. So, part two. What did Taiwan give to Oxford County? Taiwan has given Oxford County, and especially of course Zora Township, a unique place in the history of two nations. Something which is founded in history but enlivened by the gratitude of the human feelings which continue, so it's not just past history. And this gratitude is expressed in very concrete ways, like that statue given by Alethea University. And just in August, I got a call from Knox Presbyterian Embro. They said, we got this email from some elder at Keelan Presbyterian Church, and he says he wants to send a gift and needs to know our bank account where it can be transferred to. I said, is this a scam? So I checked it out. No, it was legitimate. And here's the message that came with $4,000 Canadian as a gift to Knox Emerald Presbyterian Church. So if you're looking for some money, you could hit them up before they think of how to spend it. The message, so this year marks the 150th anniversary of Reverend George Leslie Mackay's arrival in Taiwan. And we at Geelong Presbyterian Church are deeply thankful for the legacy he left behind as one of the first churches established in northern Taiwan through his mission. We are commemorating this important milestone with heartfelt gratitude. So, heartfelt gratitude indeed. So a unique place that Oxford County has, and what do we do with this? Well, Oxford County, also because of Mackay's campaign against the head tax on Chinese people coming to Canada, really Oxford County can claim to be the pioneer of Canadian anti-racism. And it started on a specific day and time in the old town hall, which is the National Historic Site in Woodstock, on November 16th, 1893. A large public meeting was held in the town hall to protest the poll tax. And it was attended by all the clergy, the local politicians, the member of parliament, and of course, everyone signed on to oppose this evil and unrighteous and unjust tax on Chinese people. And that eventually, that was the beginning of Mackay's campaign across what was Eastern Canada. He never went out west, to get people to say, we have to end this poll tax. We have to end it. And that ended up with the Presbyterian Church General Assembly of 1895 passing a resolution calling for the government to end the poll tax, which was also the first time that any church in Canada had spoken on what they said. Why are we speaking on this? This is a political matter. The churches aren't supposed to talk politics. But they did. They spoke about orphans and widows and temperance. And so this is the first time a church in Canada spoke out against a political issue. And it all started right here in Oxford County on November 16th, 1893. So that's a bit of history which Oxford County, I think, could be proud of. Third, Oxford, of course, has also gained the sister city relationship with Tamsui, which now is enfolded into New Taipei City, population 2.8 million. Now, we could say a lot about this relationship. It certainly could be developed more than just exchanges and visits, because Oxford County is now not just cows and cheese and corn. Oxford County is an automotive center, an electric battery center. It is beginning to become a manufacturing and tech center. And who has the high tech? Who knows more about this than Taiwan? And maybe it's time that Oxford County could use this friendship and the gratitude to get together with the province of Ontario and send a trade delegation or invite some Taiwanese to look at Taiwanese companies investing in manufacturing and technology in Oxford County. And why not? We say, well, you know, these are two separate things, but not in Taiwan. There's a Chinese expression which says, 见面三分情, which means that once you have met once, you already have 3 parts of human feelings. Of course, 10 parts of human feelings is the maximum. So we have this unique relationship, and perhaps it's time to explore what kind of economic opportunities it would bring for Oxford County. And one of the economic opportunities, this is point 4, is the tourist attraction, which also needs to be developed. We have, of course, many Taiwanese come here to do the Mackay pilgrimage, and Oxford County had published a guide, and then they decided they would put it online. And there is the Mackay itinerary online, but how many Taiwanese know that they can go there and find it? That's the question. So we have the plaques in Embro, the 2001 and the 2003 plaque, which is they won the only plaque in the world written in Romanized Taiwanese, which the woman didn't know what what she was talking about. So the film. And there's the statue, of course, in Woodstock. And then the things that relate to the time of Mackay himself, the Pioneer Cemetery, where his family is buried, the pioneers are buried. The United Church, the original Presbyterian Church, was such a beautiful building inside, and they have their own little tiny display about Mackay in the church, and the gifts that Taiwanese visitors brought to them. And we have the farm gate, which some group apparently did a wonderful job of restoring this year, putting plantings around it. And Bernice Marsden sent me the pictures. I have no idea who did this. Do you have any idea? No, but somebody did a nice job of fixing up all around the farm gate and planting some flowers and so on. Yeah. So, we do need something in a museum where people can come, right? And say, see an exhibit, and also we need some Mackay kitsch that they can buy. Taiwanese people are the ultimate Hello Kitty culture. They love kitsch. They buy kitsch, but they can. I've taken groups. Oh, this is something we can buy. You know, well, no, we don't have any souvenirs. You can buy some cheese and stuff. So that's something that Oxford County has gained from Taiwan, but it is an opportunity which can be developed more to the benefit of Oxford County and to the memory that those sites preserve. And that is my last point, that through Mackay and through the Taiwanese affirmation of Mackay, that those people, those Scottish Highland Zora pioneers, that unique little community of 270 people, I think, at the beginning or something, they have received an affirmation far greater than I think they've received in Canada. Their culture and the contributions that they, through Mackay, have made to Taiwan. Mackay was called by William Mackay in his book, The Zora Boys at Home and Abroad. Mackay was called the greatest of the sons of Zora. And he was the greatest of the sons of Zora because Mackay carried those Zora pioneer Presbyterian Scots culture and their values to Taiwan. Bill Butts played Kai the Barbarian is a wonderful presentation of those values and in the most creative way. And I really would love to see it get on the stage again someday. We've talked about it and hemmed and hawed. I tried to get it into the Fringe Festival years ago, and nobody wanted to pick it up. Oh, to play with a missionary. So, but if you haven't seen it, you can try to talk to Bill Butt about it, because it's a wonderful presentation of the integration of that Presbyterian culture with Mackay's life in Taiwan. And so those values of the Zora pioneers also continue in the Presbyterian Church in Taiwan, founded by George S. Mackay. The Presbyterian Church is noted for its outspokenness on human rights and its affirmation of Taiwanese, not Chinese, identity. And these are some of the values and courageousness that they gained from Mackay. So when Mackay is celebrated and remembered in Taiwan, really these Zora pioneers are also being celebrated. And it seems to me they should be better remembered as a historic moment in Oxford County history and as a unique ethnic culture in Oxford County. And how they are remembered is something that is up to you guys. And thank you for giving me that time.
Shall we discuss? Anybody have any questions or discussion?
Or complaints?
Sure, right. So Mackay was obviously a great communicator, superb. He knew his audiences, whether it's boys or girls in Taiwan, or theology students, or Presbyterian Zora people, or Toronto, wherever. He was just mesmerizing, right? So I was thinking when I was looking at this video, it's full of pictures, the great pictures, the historic ones, black and white ones with him in it and so on. I've seen them all before. They're famous, iconic. And I'm thinking, how were those taken? They didn't have their phones. Did he have like a PR person who came along with a
Yes.
tripod camera? He must have.
Yes, and we also know who took those pictures. One of his students, his star student, Gao, who was the one he brought to Canada too in 1881. So they knew, Presbyterian Church knew he was coming back at the end of 1892 and 1893, and stayed until 1895, and then left for Taiwan in October 1895. And so they said, we need stuff, right? And so we need pictures from you, and we need stuff to display. So that's those 16 boxes of artifacts that finally have ended up in the, unfortunately, with one small glass cabinet in the storeroom of the Royal Ontario Museum. And so Mackay got somebody who had a camera, and Gao, his star student, learned how to take those pictures. And he did the pictures as they were traveling around and went to Yunnan and other places. So that's who took those pictures. And they were probably on the border of the mission board. We need pictures. So,
Well, even if it wasn't his idea to take pictures and so on, he isn't getting the credit he deserves for his pioneering PR skills
Oh,
and
he
marketing skills. He was
free
brilliant at that.
publicist, which of course has been a great debate. Well, how much of his letters home, are sort of things puffed up or made up or exaggerated or so on. So Jim Rohr, who unfortunately has now very, very serious health problems, and his book is sitting somewhere, supposed to get published by Oxford County Press, The Young Mackay, starting with Zora. Jim Rohr was especially interested in that, comparing the letters and the diaries, his personal diaries, which were his personal diaries, and sometimes went for weeks with just notation about the weather, and sometimes have long, long descriptions of something which really struck him. So. And yes, Mackay was aware that he was writing for the folks at home, but basically Jim Rohr's conclusion was that it was legit. What he was saying was true, but he was presenting it in a way which would bring support, right? Because they needed the money.
So, I think that there's a lot of pieces to the video and to the talk about this relationship and how can be continued, or how it might change or benefit both parties in different ways. And I know you mentioned the pieces about there being material as well as that welcoming response to visitors from Taiwan in Oxford County. Obviously, being connected to the museum here, my question would sort of be, what do you think the average person who is making that pilgrimage to Zora Township is looking to encounter here? Like, obviously, they're looking to learn more about Mackay, right, and his life and whatnot, and his family. But what are they, like, what can we provide them? Is it more that they want the story of that root, like the root of George Leslie Mackay's life? Or do they want to see the recognition of him here? Or, it's certain, obviously the Mackay collection at the ROM is a treasure, right? So that isn't entirely on display. But what is it that they're coming to that pilgrimage for?
Well, pilgrimage, when I studied anthropology, pilgrimage is often studied by anthropologists as a phenomenon where people, because there are so many levels and meanings to pilgrimage, and of course it was the origin of tourism. Right? So monasteries in medieval Europe, they used to actually raid and steal artifacts from a competing monastery to get it to their monastery. So they would get all the business, because people would come and spending money and staying overnight at the monastery and donating. So pilgrims at the
so we should be going to the ROM with some boxes?
Something, I was really shocked.
To attract more Taiwanese visitors.
I was really shocked at the cheapness of the ROM, because years ago I talked about having a display during 2001 at the Woodstock Museum, right? And they're all saying, oh, well, yes, but they have to have this and this and the security and the climate and so on. So, come on, these are things that you've had sitting in a warehouse in Oakville for now over a century, And you're telling us that we can't let into this museum, it doesn't have all the proper security and climate and lighting and so on. So I think raiding the Arrow was a great idea. Anyways, so what is it? They try to connect with something which in a material way or a place, a tomb, whatever, or the site of a miracle that connects them, that they can actually touch and say, this I have now touched. Connected with the power and the blessings that Saint so-and-so can bring, right? So for Mackay, I think one of the things is to be, this is, you know, I said, well, why would they want to go to the farm? It's not even the original farmhouse, just because this is where he was born. It doesn't matter if the house isn't there, this is where he was born, that's the thing. So that's what pilgrims look for. In terms of the rest, if you're a pilgrim, you already know the story of your saint, otherwise you wouldn't be going there. So you want to review the story and hear it again and learn something you haven't learned, perhaps. And so I'm saying something about the Zora pioneers would be interesting, because this history really is not known to most people in Oxford County, but certainly not in Taiwan. That this unique culture which produced this unique man. So that would be something that people would be interested in, I think.
So something else they'd be interested in, because I've watched lots of them. Yes, they want stuff. If you had a display of fridge magnets in Mackay, they'd snap them up for
Exactly.
like they do in Tamsui. But also they need material in their language. Like even the website, you say, okay, it's got a guidebook about the Mackay tour and so on, but is it in their language?
Well, it can easily be done. Now, I don't know, I haven't been to the statue for a while, but the last time we actually had a Mackay committee meeting, and that was a while ago, I raised this question, and it was, who was tourism Mackay? She's, the county administrator. Meredith, yeah. Meredith said, well, yes, we are preparing, we're going to do, instead of printing material, we're going to do a QR code and then have it by the statue. So they can get the guide from the QR code on the statue on their cell phones, which people all have these days, so it makes good sense. So I said, well, we're going to be getting done. I don't know if it's been done yet.
So if they come here, they're gonna see things they can't see in Taiwan, like that Zora map, for example. And it needs, there's a paragraph in English there, it needs a paragraph in their language.
And definitely, but it's no problem to translate into Chinese. It's very quickly done. Well, especially now that Google Translate is getting pretty good. And what was it? David Oliphant, I think, was the warden at the time, and he was invited over, and he had, well, I have to have a card. I'm told when you go to Asia, you have to have a name card, right? And you have to have it in Chinese. So could you? And he'd done it on Google thing. It was David, the David Oliphant, warden, Oxford County warden, and then it says proudly Canadian or something like that. Proud Canadian. I looked at the Google Translate and I laughed and laughed. It said David Oliphant, prison warden in Oxford County, because that's where Oxford, the only way that Google knew the word. Prison warden of Oxford County, and proud could be, stuck up and proud, arrogant. A stuck up Canadian. so I tried to convince, and it was really hard because he didn't believe me. He said, but it's Google, why is it's wrong, trust me. So, but now it's pretty good. So you run it through Google Translate, the editing is very quick, and you've got your Chinese.
Well, it sounds like a summer grant project to me.
Yeah.
So these things can be done. Summer grants. It may not be oil pipelines and copper mines, but maybe the federal government will be pouring more money into local initiatives.
There is a lot more interest in translations as it ties to accessibility, right? And there's a lot more conversation about how having materials in multiple languages improves accessibility, and under that heading, there can be some grant money found.
Yeah, well, and when Don Mackay was warden, we were talking about getting a Mackay museum, and there were basically three plans. And Don's preference, because he was East Lower Tavistock, and said Mackay was actually born in East Lower Tavistock, to buy a little bit of the front yard of the Mackay farm and build a little Mackay museum there. And so the man who was the moderator of the Presbyterian Church in Taiwan that year, they have a new moderator every year, came and said, "This is a great idea," and he said, "You know, no problem. I can raise this money back in Taiwan. How much do you think it's going to cost?" Well, it'll be about $200,000. I think a lot more than that. But anyways, he said, "No problem. I'm going to raise this money." And I just said, "I'll wait to see it." And then when he back to Taiwan, and then the next time I went back to Taiwan, I was asking, "Well, did he bring this up at the General Assembly executive?" "Well, no, nobody heard about it." So he mentioned it once in his church in Tainan or something. But and I'm glad it didn't happen, because it's, well, who's going to run this? How are you going to staff it? You know? And the fortunate thing was, the family that owns that farm would not sell land. And Don was really twisting their arm trying to get them to do it.
Oh boy.
And that was fine. A plan B was the one which I was in favor of, and at that time there was going to be a branch library in Embro. And it was already, the funding was there, they were going to build a branch library, and we talked about it. I said, well, you know, no problem, we can have one small room or one corner of the library and have the Mackay Museum display there, and staffing is no problem because we'll have the staff in the library, so when the library is open, the little Mackay Museum is open, they said everything would take care of everything. But then the policy changed, and the library board said we're not going to remake it branch libraries because everybody's online anyway. So that went. And the third one was at either Woodstock Museum, which kept saying, well, we don't have any room and our mandate is really just Woodstock, or the Beachville Museum. But eventually it's sort of, that's things to do. But it's possible to revive it again. And there is enough enthusiasm in Taiwan that money could be found.
Yeah.
Taiwan's really big now in international conversations too.
Yes.
Because we're talking about Taiwan just because of the Asian politics and the way the world's going right now. It's people are much more focused on Taiwan than they ever were.
And the thing is, it's not good that Taiwan is under increasing threat from China. It is. It's getting more and more scary. So Taiwan's foreign diplomats, such as the consul in Toronto or the national representative in Ottawa, they're under a lot of pressure to produce anything that shows support for Taiwan. So one thing would be nice if Oxford County could just pass a resolution and say, we support Taiwan being admitted to the UN under the name Taiwan, or something like that. So it's not much, but these things are important. They have all sorts of washed up politicians who come to visit Taiwan, and they get to meet the president and everything, whereas we wouldn't have the time of day for them here, just because they used to be the Deputy Minister of Defense in Great Britain or something. So it sounds kind of candy, but it's a good time to put the touch on Taiwan because they're looking for any opportunities to increase Taiwan's visibility, and then they report back and see we've done the job and we're getting, we should get a better post next time. So.
Well, they invested in this display, didn't they?
Oh, yes, they
Which
did.
is superb. It's the
Yeah,
best I've ever seen.
So there are things to do. It's just a matter of getting it done. And these things never happen that fast, especially in Canada.
Yeah, I think we're frozen to the spot.
But there are things. I think there's, as I put it, there's more things we could do, right? And it's just a matter of saying, well, let's work on doing it. So this is why we can't let the Mackay Committee die, even though we're basically already on life support.
And you guys meet virtually now for the most part?
We had not met for how long? I'm afraid to say the Mackay Committee has come down to Bill and Karen, me, and Edward Tong, who is the co-chair. Even the Oxford co-chair has never appeared in any of our conversations. So, it was Jerry Accioni, because the warden, although he's the mayor of Oxford, he's the region of time for this.
Yeah, we meet online.
No,
We haven't met in person for a while,
no.
except at the Highland Games every year.
The Presbyterian Church has assigned an official, the Presbyterian Church has an official representative on the Mackay Committee. And the United Church used to, and then we had some academics, but both of us are getting on. So, but it's worth keeping the Mackay Committee alive, because we sort of can help make the connections and move things along. So.
Well, thank you, Michael. We really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
And I'm glad to see this display as it is in the
Yeah.
museum. It's really nice.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah. No, Edward deserves all the credit for that. He comes
He
in
came
and
twice.
I know, and sets everything up and,
And he'll be here next week to close down.
yes, yes.
He said, I have to see you. I'm so busy, I'm not coming to.
Yeah, yeah. No, we had a nice discussion with him, and he was in both times actually, and we said, if you could keep it here another week, we have another car show on the grounds, which is our last car show of the year. We usually have 300 people plus
Yeah.
here on those days, so it's a big high traffic day. But he says, no, I'm going to Taiwan, I can't, so.
Well, let me talk with him about this, because, yes, I'm in Taiwan for 5 weeks, and he's in Taiwan for like 5 months. But that doesn't mean these can't be packed up and taken back to Toronto by somebody else. Or you can keep them here through October, and I'm back in November.
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible. But I did mention it to him, so he's scheduled to come in for the 20th. But I mentioned, our car shows are high traffic days, so you can get a lot, and people will come in September that have been here May, June, July,
Oh, yes.
that have already seen our permanent displays. And so an exhibit like this gives them something new to see that, brings, they typically make their way into the museum anyway for cool air or washrooms. But then if there's something new, they're more likely to take a stroll through
Well,
that.
if you want to do it, you email it tonight, and I emailed him and said I would be willing to make the trip and pack things up, because they all fit into the back of my 5-door. They always fit every year for the Emperor Highland Games.
I'll have it, I'm just half an hour away,
So
I'm not going anywhere.
that's doable, and then you can have them here through October and get everybody in there. Pass out those flyers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think again, we had, even with Ken coming by, we have people that have seen it online and come explicitly to come see this show. So they'll walk in the front door and say, I'm here to see the Mackay exhibit, and they'll come in, so.
Have you seen any Taiwanese other than Ed come in here
Not for this,
for this?
but as I mentioned to you, this year we've had more Taiwanese visitors than I've seen in my 7 years here. So, and as I said, there've been years where we had.
We had the bus load.
Well, that was different. So outside of like those announced and pre-scheduled kind of delegations or groups that have been coordinated usually with Tico. But this year it seems more visitors that are coming not in that kind of formal way, but in a more informal way, that they're coming for their own purposes and then meeting us here.
After the Highland Games, I was heading home, and I just pulled in to buy some bright cottage cheese at what used to be Mackay's store, and I said, I'll just go and look at the plaques once more. And there were 3 or 4 Taiwanese people, because I immediately see they were Taiwanese, and somebody was trying to explain something, so I got out of the car, came over and said something in Taiwanese, which always gets a big reaction. and one guy said, "Oh, you're Michael Stainton, you're Michael." And he was an elder from a Presbyterian church in Taiwan, so he knew the story, and they were showing some guests around, so I was able to tell them some of the stories. And so people just come. on the
Well,
pilgrimage, right?
the
And they
photo-
wanted to get into the church.
The photo that you brought to us of the farmhouse, and then we've had some donations through Zora Township too, because the township has been gifted a number of different pieces from the Taiwanese people over the years, that they don't have on display or have housing for, so those have come into our collection recently. So we have some, and we also have, I think, a fan that was originally a member of Mackay's family's,
Oh, yes,
like a hand fan.
would have been his daughter-in-law's,
Okay.
George
Yeah.
Williams' wife, yes.
And so some of those pieces, when we have visitors, we'll pull them out for them to see them when they're here. But again, there's not, as you're saying, not enough information about them in their language. So it can be, I feel sometimes like we're not offering the most fulfilling, like stop for them, but
Well, you can,
Yeah.
and really, I mean, I work for food, so, but, and like, I've discovered that really Google Translate has improved a lot.
yeah,
Because I was doing something else and it was a 2-page thing and I just had to translate it. And, this is pretty good. There were no egregious errors and just a few choices of words that could have been improved, and that was it. And so it's not hard, time consuming to do. You don't have to pay somebody $20,000, to do these things. So if you would do propose, although Ed has spent a lot of money on these and the bus trips and things, he also gets a lot of contributions. So he hasn't managed to clean out our Canadian Mackay Committee bank accounts yet. So we could, Mackay Committee could put in a bit just to show our support. So,
yeah, no, as I said, it's something that, and we had a staff member a year and a half ago, more than a year and a half ago now. It would have been 2.5 years ago. Well, you met David maybe online with our conference, but he has a really strong interest in Asian studies and diplomacy and the story of Mackay. Like he's very, very interested in that story, and I think he's en route to Japan next year potentially to do some teaching there. But he has also said, if you ever get involved in getting some more material put up for George Leslie Mackay, let me know, because I want to help out with that. So it would be nice to, again, and he's a young gentleman, like I think in his mid-20s, so someone who's potentially even a good candidate for the committee to meet, as far as new blood maybe.
This is something that TICO doesn't fund it. They then apply on our behalf through these different windows there, usually to the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Culture back in Taiwan, and get a grant. So.
Yeah, but I'll reach out to David too, because I know we haven't yet recently pulled him in for that work, mostly because he was considering, like I said, avenues in Japan, but I think I'll connect with him soon,
So these we just did it was a rush job in English, but the original posters, there was a set of 30. They were in Chinese and English, but not as long a text as there is here.
I think those were here when we had our last display, but because we didn't have these at the last time that we had the Canadian Mackay Committee exhibit up.
We after the original posters really got pretty beat up, we chose 6, and we got 5 here. We chose 6 that side. I don't know which one didn't come, but and these are the 5 of the 6.